Good evening and welcome to Democratic TV, television for Democrats, by Democrats, and about Democratic values and issues of public policy. My name is Doug Veum and I'm going to be your host tonight. My guests are veteran City Council member George Wallace. We've just been joking about the fact that he's the senior guy in town right now. And both of Knoxville's deputy mayors, Bill Lyons and David Brace. Welcome, George.
Thank you.
And David and Bill, and I appreciate you taking the time to join us for this discussion about the workings of our city government in Knoxville. Our goals for the show are to convey to you, the viewer, information about how the city of Knoxville government touches you every day and to increase your knowledge of the working of our city government in order to motivate you to watch the upcoming campaign for mayor and city council and vote in the August primary election and in the November general election when we will elect a mayor and 4 new city council members. In order to get our discussion focused on the workings of the city government, would each of you give our viewers a thumbnail sketch of your responsibility in the city and on the council? And George, why don't we start with you?
Okay, sure. Well, I'm in my second term on city council. I'm one of the 3 at-large members. So there's 6 districts and there's 3 at-large. So I'm one of the 3 at-large. So finishing up my second term. So I serve all the city of Knoxville in all districts.
Yeah. Okay. Bill.
Okay, I'm Deputy to the Mayor for Policy, Chief Policy Officer. My colleague who you'll hear from in a minute is the Chief Operating Officer, David Brace. And I'm responsible for the direction the city takes in policy, especially concentrating on downtown and the core of the city, as well as community development, sustainability, communications, sort of describing what we do and how we do it through those auspices along with special events as well.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, my name is David Brace, and I am the Chief Operating Officer and Deputy to the Mayor. And my responsibilities are about everything operations, so public service, engineering, fleet, parks and rec, some of the things you don't think of behind the scenes, the finance department, our risk benefits department, so employee benefits and risk management, public assemblies, facilities, 311, which is the customer service line, our Knoxville area transit reports in through operations. Report into the mayor, obviously, and have been doing that since October of 2017.
I guess one of my questions is, where do you guys office?
Well, we're on the 6th floor.
6th floor.
So we're the city county building, and we're not too far apart in that if there wasn't any carpet in the hall, it'd be tread down pretty good because we back and forth with each other a good bit of the day because policy and operations are not that easy to totally separate. They overlap quite a bit.
Yeah, just about everything we do, almost every morning and afternoon, Bill and I are in each other's offices communicating how those two dovetail together because it's difficult to separate.
We'll talk about how people can reach you as well. That's one of the reasons I ask where your offices are. The other question is, how far from the mayor are you? But probably not too far.
Not too far.
Yeah.
I would say about a 15-second walk.
Yeah, and we're over. That's usually where we meet in the morning, is an early morning kind of cup of coffee, discuss the day, and I think one good thing about local government is we're very accessible to both elected officials and those that are in public administration roles. I always say that the best way to reach kind of general day-to-day things at the city is to call 311. That helps us track our performance and operations and to know, to really know who's calling and why, to look at those metrics. People can always email us. People can always I know that my cell number is out there and is prevalent. People have it, my office number. So Bill and I are very accessible to citizens, customers that have needs, and that's the good thing about local government. You can be in somebody's office pretty quickly if you've got a concern.
And that's one of the things we want to accomplish tonight is really drive that point home. Now, how do you communicate to those guys? Do you stop by their offices on occasion?
I probably more call than call and email. We have healthy, hearty debates and discussions about issues, and but most of the time it's a phone call and follow up, maybe email on where we are. So don't stop by very often.
Presumably there are certain issues that you have to deal with a more kind of a timely basis. I mean, think about the budget, those kinds of issues, and so you got an open relationship, I guess, with them, where you could just.
Absolutely. I think these 2 guys have opened their availability to all council people to call and to have discussion about and meet off-site if necessary, meet in their office if necessary, and certainly the budget is a big part of that, and discussing that and understanding it is it takes a little bit to understand that as well. So.
But every council meeting that comes up where the administration puts most, not all of the items on the agenda, we
Right.
send it out to council, and
Right.
Councilman Wallace will call or text or email or any number of ways on an item. Might say, hey, would you mind? Let's get into this a little more. You know, I don't quite understand where
What-
this is
yeah,
coming
what does
from,
this
or
mean? Yeah.
or why are these dollars what they are, and that's the way it's supposed to work. And then we also have those debates at the council meetings as well. But we have them in real time during the week, not just at the meetings.
One of the things I was going to ask about is the Sunshine Law and how that works. And this may be a good time to ask about that. It does not affect your relationship with them, is that
Right. It just
correct?
prevents me from meeting with one other council
Sure.
member and by ourselves or with them without sunshine in it. So typically all those meetings are one-on-one with
Sure.
with either one of these
Right.
guys.
I have met with more than one councilman at a time. I get Panera Bread or something like that, asking specific questions. And it's been interesting to me that each time that happens, they tell me we've sunshined this meeting. Now I'm not interesting enough for the reporters to show up. But I do know that goes on.
We do.
I mean, I know, and there's a pretty conscientious effort to make sure that
think so.
happens as well. But in terms of your relationship to the city administration, they have an open door for you.
They do.
Yeah.
They have very much so.
Yeah.
You know, and I like to. And before we had an issue coming before council, I don't. I've made it a practice of my own not to play gotcha with them. I want to have a discussion about it with them before I go in and ask it. And I may ask the same question that I asked
the
them
council,
in our meeting, because I want them to have an opportunity to answer it right. I don't want to surprise them. Some things do come up that I think of on the spot, but many times I'll ask it beforehand. So
One other question I'd have for you, George, is when you have a constituent call, then you convey those issues or those concerns or things to them directly yourself, or do you put your constituent in charge?
No, I'd like to. Many times, if it's involved, it's got a lot of detail with it. I'd ask them to send me an email that I can forward on to the
Okay.
right appropriate person. Sometimes it's these two. Sometimes it may not be. I know where I can be handled. And I think that's part of our role on council is to be that connector
Yeah, I agree.
between the public and where maybe what department or what person can handle that. Otherwise, if they've called me and I don't know, I either email them or call, maybe text. But many times I'm looking for an email, just something that I can take and then forward back to them, or and there's some response. So I want to. I like to listen and respond, and then I like to follow up and make sure that those two people did connect. So that's kind of been my practice.
My wife and I were in Washington, D.C. a month or so ago, and first time we lived there many years ago. And the first time we were back for a long time, and we went down to look at the two of the museums on the mall. And we're startled, quite frankly, by how large it is, and how much space is there. And I think my reason to point that out is that we don't have that issue. I mean, you guys are right here.
Right.
And you can get to these guys whenever
Right,
you
that's
want
right,
to.
absolutely.
And your constituents can also do the same thing.
Well, I think
And
that's our job.
Yeah,
That's our job to be accessible. So.
it is, but I want to emphasize tonight how important that relationship is. I mean, how easy it is for someone who lives in Knoxville as a citizen
That's right.
to reach the people who are making decisions for them all the time.
Yes.
And I think that's important, and that's to me, that's one of the big benefits of living in a city this size. You have a lot of resources, but you don't have so many that you can't, can't touch them. 311. How many places can actually use a 311 number as effectively as we do?
Yeah, that's been an important tool under
Yeah.
Mayor Haslam when they set that up to better understand what are the demands of citizens and how are we performing.
Right.
And so we've got a great 311 system, and we actually have we actually run the regional 211 system through a contract with United Way. So city taxpayers don't pay for that, but we have 311, 211 together, and that's an important benefit when we have major disasters. We can rally resources and connect people with resources and
quick.
volunteers.
Yeah.
And we can track.
Yeah,
too.
track.
Yeah,
That's the
I was
main-
going to ask
Right.
about that.
And map. You can
And
certainly
track and
map.
map.
Somebody
Yeah.
calls in something, that doesn't disappear into the abyss somewhere.
Sure.
It's that given a number, and
Yeah.
that all is followed, and then that we can get back to the constituent who called, and then it helps us and helps David in operations especially look at that data and go, we're getting a lot of calls about this and this area, and it really helps manage.
Sure, you
management
decide where you
function.
put resources and things like
Right.
that. Yeah. Well, one of the things that I really like about 311 is generally when I call, I'm going to speak to someone right away. Now they may transfer me to someone, because they don't always have the answer themselves. But you're never in some Netherland. This morning I went to a bank at Bank of America because I needed to learn how to use their website for my credit card, and because they've changed it, and I realized how much nicer it was to be able to pick up a phone, 311, talk to somebody, and I didn't have to go somewhere. Wouldn't have had to go somewhere, and I had to go to the bank to actually get a person to talk to face to face. You know, think about that. You know, yeah.
I think the other thing that's changed too is social media.
Oh yeah,
and we see a lot on social media.
Sure.
Dave and I had a situation a couple of weeks ago. And see people post about certain issues, and I think we were able to respond, you know, outside of social media. But at the same time, we watch that as well, and it's another way for people to interact with them.
And it works for you.
It does work.
You getting those things. I
Some of that
presume you
does
guys
work.
do the same thing.
Yeah, well, a lot of times we alert each other to that.
Yeah,
you know,
right.
George, Councilman Wallace actually said, "Hey, this is on Facebook. Will you look into this?" I'm able to get that information.
Oh, that's interesting.
Relay
yeah.
that to Councilman Wallace.
Right.
And then also message the individual concerned. And actually we're having some ongoing dialogue right now. So that's very helpful for us to
And sometimes
connect.
we follow this too.
Yeah.
Sure.
Sometimes excessively, but that's that's part of life these days.
Right, yeah, I know.
And you'll look and something will pop up and why is the city doing X? And
Right.
in many
What are we
cases,
doing? Yeah.
Sometimes we're explaining it, and sometimes we're not doing X.
Yeah,
Sometimes
yeah, right.
sometimes it's not
You
us.
have to set that aside. That's right, exactly.
Yeah, I think one thing about, you know, that I would hope viewers would know is when people have a concern, we really do want to make it better. We can't always instantly make it better, but knowing what the concerns are, there's a whole team of people that want to make it better.
Right.
And so if there's a problem, the only way for us to make it better is to know about it.
Sure.
And sometimes we can catch that through metrics, 311, our own assessments, but we also need citizens to call us, email us, go on Facebook. So let us know if there's a problem. We'll try to make it better. So.
I lived in Madison, Wisconsin before I moved here. Madison is roughly the size of of Knoxville, and they're pretty similar cities. Madison's the capital, but it's got the university. We've got ONL, they don't have that. But the point being is that they're similar cities with a similar kind of constituency. And but I will say this, that since I've been in Knoxville, I've felt the government more accessible. Soglin tried to make the government accessible up there, but somehow I don't think that worked as well as it works here. There's something about our government here that really works nicely in terms of that aspect, getting in touch with that. You know,
That's good to hear.
Yeah, I mean, it really is.
That's right.
Right.
One of the things I wanted to talk about also is what are the big services that the city provides? What are it's probably obvious, but let's talk about what the obvious services are, and things like police, fire, garbage pickup, those kinds of things.
There's really three big services: police, fire, and then I'll lump public works as engineering and public service and fleet. And I just had some numbers. You know, if you look at the total budget for police, it's almost $60 million. Fire is right at $44 million. And then you look at public works, it's $85 million. So the bulk of what we do, we're a service agency.
Sure.
And out of a $231 million general fund or general budget, that's
220. That's way big chunk of it, isn't it?
it's a huge chunk of it.
A lot of that's people.
Yes,
people.
right,
We're a service industry, and that's why
Right.
city employees and having outstanding employees with good benefits and so forth
Right.
is so important. to
You're not
retain
buying
those.
things, you're buying service. You're buying things they
Service,
can
that's
do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so when people think, obviously police protection, fire protection, street paving, garbage, brush collection, so your garbage, your recycling, your brush. So those are many of the core services people see on a day-to-day basis. There's other things you don't see, like we talked about traffic signal synchronization. You know, there's a whole team of people that do signs and signals, and much of that happens that I say that our citizens or customers shouldn't have to think about it. The road ought to be paved, the pothole ought to be patched, and the stripes on the street ought to be done. So all of those core services should make your life safe. And obviously there's the amenities of Parks and Recreation and our where we live in East Tennessee.
Those are just fundamental to having the kind of city everybody wants to have, that fun level of services. And then there are all the other things in terms of development and direction,
Right.
and the kind of city we want to be, and providing amenities,
Right.
further amenities, and attracting business,
Sure.
and that's a whole other focus.
It
but
is.
that basic service component is, without it,
It's
you know,
absolutely
we're-
essential. In fact, if you look around the country and see who's getting investment, one of the qualities of businesses or cities that get investment that I find is that those services are as critical as any other financial incentive as there are. I mean, just having a place where people can live and work nicely is a big benefit.
And you want to keep the infrastructure invested.
Yes.
Invest in the infrastructure. It's very tempting and all over the country over the years to let that slide a little bit under tight times, and I really much appreciate Mayor O'Hara's commitment and council's support. We continually make infrastructure investments to stay ahead of that game, and appreciate KUB as well on
Sure,
that.
I know.
Yeah, it's important when you talk about core services.
Yeah.
Obviously, they don't report into us, but the Knoxville Utility Board, drinking water, sanitary
Oh, yeah.
sewer, electric and gas.
Right.
If you don't have those, that's again, that's
Right.
core service that has got to be there for everything else to happen.
And the
Absolutely.
nightmare, of course, is the Flint, Michigan model.
Right, exactly.
And
Right.
that's
The wrong.
that's the
wrong direction.
poster child for
Yeah.
where you don't want to be.
Deferred maintenance for years
Yeah,
and years
yeah.
is not good.
Well, I can tell you, I live in Sequoia Hills, so I know we're not deferring maintenance there, at least, because every street seems to be you're doing KOB or somebody's doing something on the street, and
And that's equal all over the city.
yeah, no, it is. I know. But yeah,
There are
maybe-
trenches in all
You're
parts
right.
of
You want
town.
to make that point. I sometimes get embarrassed. Are we getting special treatment? But they're good to hear we're not. But the other thing is that I see the roads being repaired and the roads being upgraded. I mean, some of the things you're doing along the corridors east and north are amazing. I mean, and I presume that the city is, if they may not doing exactly it, those are again plans that the city has laid out for what Central Avenue should be like and what the Magnolia Avenue should be like, and those are
Well,
things.
that's going beyond just the.
Yeah.
We could keep providing what we're providing,
Yeah.
but those that's a vision, mayor and council's vision of being more walkable, pedestrian friendly,
Right.
having development occur in those neighborhoods revitalized, and that investment there is above and beyond just paving what's there already.
So what you're
Beyond
saying is,
maintenance.
what you're saying is that there's more. The investment we're making in our infrastructure is more than just maintaining it.
Yes.
We are improving it.
Well, maintenance is important, but you also have to make these investments in
Sure.
certain areas of town.
Sure.
Central's a great example, Cumberland, Magnolia. Let's invest knowing that the market will come and invest after we upgrade the infrastructure.
Yeah, we benefit from the investment afterwards.
Sure
The
do.
ROI now, the way we're looking at it, and we can look at those streets where we're putting in the money on Central or Cumberland Avenue and see the investment that follows that.
Yep.
Like
Yeah.
well,
And it's
200 million
on
approximately on new investment on Cumberland with that
Right.
big streetscape. That's a great return on
So we
investment.
put in 18 million or 20 million, and then we
Yeah,
get 200
almost
back.
200.
Right.
The taxes,
You
and
get it
then
back in the tax
sales
return.
tax,
You're right,
and then
exactly.
and then the quality of life that it's
Amen.
it's ensued out
Oh,
there.
yeah.
So
Energy of people living and working and enjoying that part of town is
Right,
important.
exactly.
It is.
I've lunch with a bunch of old guys on Fridays down at, like I am, down at Calhoun's on or Copperstone or whatever it is on Cumberland. So we watch that going on all the time, talk to them about it, and there's no question that the energy and the dynamic on Cumberland is very different today, and
Very positive, I
Positive,
think.
yeah, I think so
it's
too.
very, very
exactly.
positive.
You see those buildings that are, certainly an increase in both the revenue base as well as just what
And
it does.
students are
And activity.
walking and they're not, and
Activity.
they're
They
not
are,
driving.
exactly,
It
yeah.
helps too.
Yeah, exactly. So those are all things that the city does. One of the things that I also like about it is when I called 911, I'm pretty confident that it's going to get answered and
Right.
responded to. So, so that's important.
That should
Yeah.
happen.
Yeah, it should happen. On garbage pickup, I know one of the things I hear people talk about is, gosh, I'd like to, people in the county say, their taxes are lower, and then I always say, well, what services do you get? I know one of the services we get in the city is garbage pickup. That don't, from my standpoint, don't underestimate how important that is. I mean, the fact that I don't have to think about that, is just put the garbage can out on the same day everywhere, and it happens all the time. It's really a nice little deal.
Yeah, I think garbage and brush, and then
Yeah.
obviously the
Oh.
curbside recycling. Those have, the recycling markets are struggling now, but those
Yeah.
markets tend to ebb and flow. But those three services, the ability to put a large pile of brush out, cut a tree down yourself, and put
Absolutely.
it out for residential homes.
Yep.
That's a core service along with police and fire.
And that is really valuable. I mean, that is monetarily valuable. I had a tree come down in a storm Memorial Day 2 years ago. Came down to my front yard. It was a big tree, and I cut that thing up myself with an idle and so haul it out to the street, and so it so happened that was the day for Kiwi Avenue to have pickup. And I put that out there in the morning, and by noon or 1 o'clock in the afternoon, that big tree was gone.
That's great.
What I don't
There's
know.
a big cost to that. and
Yeah,
cost
I
to
was going to
deliver
say,
that
I don't know,
service,
I have no idea what you guys paid for that, but man, I
Thank
really,
the city councilman for that.
Thank you. All right.
You're at large, city council.
Yeah, right. Thank you, George. I appreciate that. But I mean, seriously,
It's a core service. Yeah.
Right, it is a core service. The other thing about it is on the brush and leaves is that I know when you're going to be by.
That's
Because
right.
I can go on the website and put my on a link, put my street in, and it tells me, and it rarely misses.
Yeah.
You know.
That's why that's in there. We want to know when we are missing.
Sure.
Have we missed? And we do. There are times
Yeah.
that we do, and we need to figure out why that is.
Right.
Is it fleet services? Is it equipment breakdown? Is it a
Right.
personnel issue?
What about Parks and Recreation? Because those are big. Those would be big services. And how many people take advantage of those? Do you think?
Well, that's one of those things that's difficult to measure. We have recreation centers. We have city pools, over 100 miles of greenway, all of our open park spaces. So those are really the amenities, the quality of life aspects that we want to use to attract people here, businesses, urban wilderness, obviously our core downtown and the park amenities here, World's Fair Park. So that's an important piece. People always think of Parks and Rec and they think of basketball, baseball, soccer, but it's more than that. It's really the infrastructure of the centers, the greenways, the green space that make living in Knoxville a reason to be here.
Sure.
You know, why do you want to be here? To be able to walk on the greenway and get to a park.
And you spend a lot of time organizing that. I mean, it takes a number of employees and a number of efforts to make that sing along, right? I mean,
Yeah. Well, there's 43 Parks and Rec employees. Now we augment that with several hundred part-time employees.
In the summertime.
Well, like
things that.
summertime. I'm glad you mentioned summer. So right now we have our youth summer recreation program. Over 850 children that can take advantage of a very reasonable summer program where they are at a rec center in a safe environment. They do field trips, they go to pools, they go to other activities, a water park, and they're in a great safe environment during the day, and it's economical for residents, especially those. We've got scholarships through CAC. So if you've got residents that are low to moderate income families, those are important services for city residents that I think people don't think of.
Sure.
You know, a lot of times you don't realize there's almost 900 kids
Right. Yeah.
in a program every
Sure.
day that aren't just out hanging out,
Sure.
and that's a good thing.
And that's
good.
Parks and it's also a social service function.
service.
Yeah.
I mean, that's it, and those two complement each other
Right.
many times, and
Right.
that's something we have to be very conscious of.
Well, we're going to have a program eventually on the social services aspect of it, not just the drug and alcohol abuse, but the homelessness and all of those kinds of things. And I know the city is involved in that, and I would want to talk about it at some point. But just to let our viewers know tonight, at least, that is a part of what the city does. But when it comes to parks and recreation and the greenways, I mean, that is an amazing. I mean, I ride a bike. And those bike trails or those greenways are really nice because you don't have to worry about other cars. You know, I used to ride out on the the Blount County roads, which is great because you can ride a long time and fast. But now that I've gotten old, I don't do that anymore. Whereas the greenways are nice just for that. But I know people walk them, and they feel safe on them. You know, and there's no question about that being, and that's a year-round. We've got a climate you can do that year-round.
Yeah, our greenways and sidewalks, if you look at demand for services, people want sidewalks and greenways. They want connectivity. They want the safe pathway to downtown or through their neighborhood. And so greenways they're really, I think, one of the things that help make our city.
Sure.
I think the growth of the urban wilderness. So we've got our asphalt greenways, but now we have literally hundreds of miles of just trails and mountain biking trails and birding trails and hiking trails. And so, with Legacy Parks Foundation and our other partners, Appalachian Mountain Bike Club and Aslan Foundation and IAMS have really helped promote what is an economic development tool. So when you look at a business wanting to come to Knoxville, They may have the building and utilities. Now it gets down to quality of life.
Sure.
How do they
Exactly.
attract and retain good employees?
Right, exactly.
And those amenities matter for that.
They do. I want to talk a little bit about the city council, but before we do, I want to put up on the screen the city organizational chart. There it is. Now, what I would say to our audience is that chart is available on the website, and if you use that chart, you kind of know who to talk to in the city. I mean, you've got, it's not just a block of titles or departments. It's actual names. I think in every one of those blocks and most of those boxes is a name. And presumably, if you call 311, you can get to that person or that department, right?
Mm-hmm.
The person. Yeah. So don't undersell that. Now let's talk about the council, because we're running out of time. Not so much what does the council do, but essentially, can you give me a thumbnail or as a thumbnail of kind of what is the role of the council in managing and organizing and administering the city?
Well, I think our role is to be accessible. We talked about that earlier. I think our role is to really help shape and refine policies and projects and opportunities. It's to weigh in, it's to listen, to hear what people are saying, and then be able to take that and offer it in a constructive way back to the city. So it's not that we don't bring policy as much as we help shape it and refine it.
Right. Do these guys bring the policy?
They bring the policy, and I think it's our role to help shape it.
You use the word refine, so that's part of the debate.
That's part of our discussion. Is that
Yeah.
you're bringing this before council. You know, did we think about doing it this way, or would you consider this or that? Let's find. You know, let's maybe shape. Take the rough edge off of it sometimes. Or is there a better way to do it? Sometimes there is, and sometimes it ends up in great dialogue, and you know, and other times it's just a better understanding of the reasoning behind it. So I think it's our role to do that.
Well, I think one of the things that's occurred since I've been here is term limits. And this is the second iteration of the term limits where we're going to turn the council over again, because when you were elected, it was the first time.
Right.
I never saw in any of my previous experiences the kind of excitement about an election that I saw about the local elections here, and I think much of it was because we had new faces.
Right.
And we're going to do it again.
Right.
You know, and so that's one of the things. Now, how does that work? Presumably, everybody comes on every 8 years. Those are or 4 years. Those are fresh faces. They've got fresh ideas, and they don't get hung up on we've always done it this way. Do you see that?
No, I think it gives people an opportunity to serve that may not have had it without term limits. You're able to force the turnover, and it is new ideas, new perspectives, and it takes a lot to do this job, and to do it right, and to make yourself available, and to weigh in on these issues, and honestly, 8 years might be just enough.
Yeah, right. Okay.
Just saying. Yeah.
But there's a certain continuity. These guys provide that continuity as well.
They do, and you know, I came in with the mayor, and when she came in, and that was a great advantage to come in and really kind of work up through that. So I found that very useful. But yeah, these guys have been great, and a number of people on that org chart, I've had relationships with most everyone of them. So.
So I guess in summary, what we're saying is that the city is managed by a lot of people who are interested in how the city works and are accessible to people who are living in the city.
And it takes everybody working and pulling in the same direction.
Right, exactly. And that probably if we went to your offices, we see a lot of people working pretty hard most of the time or all the time.
I don't think so.
We'd say all the time.
I'd say all the time.
Okay, right. Yeah. Well, I mean, I was thinking that when I say most, that was not what I meant. I really meant they work all the time.
I think that's
exactly
true.
right, and that they're working.
I found that to be true.
Yeah, exactly. Are there anything that I haven't asked you about that you really feel a burning desire to get out? Because we're down to about our last 30 seconds. So.
Thanks for having me on. I appreciate the candor and transparency.
I appreciate all of you, all three of you being on, and we're going to show this, we hope, many times besides the night it airs, because I think just the conversation that I've detected here is important for people to understand how accessible the city government is in Knoxville and why you should cast a vote in August and November. All right.
Absolutely.
And thank you for listening. We'll be back next week for another interesting discussion.